Hey folks, it's Professor Nagel. We're working in Murach C#, exercise 7.1, enhance the Invoice Total app. And I already have Invoice Total opened, which is step 1. All right, let's open the form because we're going to go to step 2, which is add a try-catch statement to the BTN calculate click method. So it catches any exception that the 2-decimal method of the convert class might throw. So yeah, you can, hit F7 and go into your code and find BTN calculate click. But we also know that what we're talking about is when you click on the calculate button. So just double click on that. And what we're looking at is this right here. Decimal.parse might throw an exception if whatever txt subtotal.text is cannot be converted into a decimal. So we're going to put a try catch in there. And my students know, I fully admit this, that C# is not, I'll say, one of my native languages. So I'm going to use a code snippet. I try not to use the mouse, but if you're a mouse person, I would encourage you to learn keyboard shortcuts as well. But just above decimal subtotal equals decimal.parse, you can right-click, snippet, insert snippet. But you can also see that that is Control-KX. So holding down Control, I'm going to hit KX, and then let go of Control. I want Visual C#. And what I'm looking for is a try catch. So there we go. There's my try catch statement. And this is the code. Let's see, how much code? Actually, this is the only bit that we're going to be trying. So we're going to put that up there. And we're going to indent it so it looks nice. So even though this is the only part that could throw a problem, if we define our variable in the try statement, we can't use it outside of the try statement. So there are 2 ways that we can handle this. One is we could do all of the work inside of the try and catch anything in there. And honestly, that's the solution that I believe the book would want you to do. Or, so I'm going to come back to that one. Or what we can do is we can declare subtotal outside of the try and then try to parse the user's input and put it into subtotal. And then when we're working down here, subtotal has already been declared and it gets set within the try. So personally, this is the way I would do it. But I'll be honest, I looked at how the book wants you to do it because I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. So we're going to do it in this way. So the only thing outside of my try catch right now is txt subtotal.focus. All right, all of the logic happens within the try. And then inside of catch, we're going to, if there is a problem with any of that logic, we're going to messagebox.show, and we're going to give it the first string as the string of the message box. So message box is like an alert, an error, whatever that pops up. So we're going to say, please enter a valid subtotal. And the second argument to this is the title of the message box. So we're going to say error and then give it a semicolon. And then get rid of that throw. All right, that was part of the snippet. We're not using that. So we're going to try to do this stuff. If any of this fails, it's probably because there's an invalid subtotal. So it's going to show this message. Let's take a look. All right, so when testing, always start with valid data. That worked. Make it invalid now. Please enter a valid subtotal. So what happened was it tried to do this decimal.parse. It threw an exception. This bit caught the exception and ran this code here, which is please enter a valid subtotal. And if I go back to a valid number, it still works. That was step 2. Step 3 is within the try statement, add code to make sure that the user actually entered a value. So up here, we're going to say if txt subtotal.text is equal to nothing, double equals nothing. Single equals is assignment, double equals is comparison. So if txt subtotal is empty, then Well, we're going to show a message box again. So I'm just going to take this message box.show, copy, paste, and please enter a subtotal. Otherwise, yeah, go ahead and try to run this stuff. Hit F5. Check this out. If I just hit enter, please enter a subtotal. If I enter 395, it worked. 395A, this error is the exception handler. It threw an exception, this caught it, that's my exception handler. That was step 3. And then step 4, add code to the try block that range checks the user's entry. So it's greater than 0 and less than 10,000. So we can't do that here. I can't do an else if in here. And I forget if it's 1 word or 2 words, whatever. But you can't do that here because we haven't converted the value yet. We have to do it after we convert the value. So now I can say if subtotal is less than 0 or subtotal, it has to be less than 10,000, is greater than or equal to 10,000. Get my zeros right. Remember, we can actually write 10,000 like that with the underscore. So instead of a comma, as you would write the number normally, you can use underscores there to help separate the number. So this is 10,000. Instead of a comma separator, it's an underscore separator. Helps it be a little bit more readable. So if it's less than 0 or it's greater than 10,000, then show another message box that says, please enter an acceptable a number in acceptable range. So I just copied that subtotal message box, and I'm going to say subtotal must be greater than 0 and less than 10,000. Otherwise, if it is greater than 0, greater than 0 and it's less than 10,000, we can run our code. All right, so we have an if inside of a try, and then inside of our else, we have an if and an else. Let's check it out. So let's go -8. Subtotal must be greater than 0 and less than 10,000. What about 0? Oh, 0 worked. All right, we don't want 0 to work. So we're going to do less than or equal to 0. Let's try this again. This is why we test. Great, it must be greater than 0. Now that is 10,000. What about 9,999.99? That worked. So there you go. That was 7.1 Enhance the Invoice Total app. However, I'm going to make some additional changes to this because I don't like how this keeps indenting over, right? We're indented one time for the namespace, one time for the class, one time for the function, one time for the try, and then the else, and then the if. We're just getting really deep here, all right? And when you have a lot of code and you see something like this, like what the heck does this go to? All right, and we have to scroll up. Oh, it's the else. Else to what? Scroll up. It's this thing here. So instead, take this txt subtotal.focus, copy that, put that to your clipboard because we're going to be using that quite a bit. So if txt subtotal.text is empty, we're going to display the message box error. We're going to put the user's focus there, and then we're going to return. Remember that this is a method that expects nothing to be returned, so we're going to return nothing. And then we're done. All right, and if we're done, we can get rid of else and the bracket for that, and its matching closing bracket, which is the middle one of these three. And now all of this code can be, if you hold down Shift and hit Tab, you can bring it back a level. And then we're going to do the same thing after this message box.show. So if the subtotal is less than or equal to 0, or if it's greater than or equal to 10,000, show the error message, focus into txt subtotal, and then get out of the function. And again, we can take the else and get rid of it, and take all this code and bring it back a level. Okay, look how much cleaner this code is without using else statements. All right, we're going to try to do all this stuff. And it's just all your code now is indented one level. It's not indented 3 different levels in there. Our end, we have one curly bracket. which is ending the try. That's it. All right, so try to avoid using else statements if you want clean code, because as you continue to make your code more and more complex, you keep indenting over again and again and again. So that was exercise 7.1, enhance the Invoice Total app.